Okay, so we just delivered a lamb. The next step that we're gonna do is we tube feed that lamb. We're also gonna talk about the shots that we give to the ewes and lamb once they're freshly born. What we like to do is we tube feed them about 120 cc's. On top of that, we put Nutri-Drench. We put 2 pumps of Nutri-Drench per lamb into that colostrum. We also put 12 cc's of 50% dextrose solution. This sugar water is really, really good for 2 things in our opinion. One, it helps get them lambs them up and get them going real good. Dextrose is also really good for anything that could be cold. It helps warm them up really good. It's actually one of the treatments we'll go over on another video as far as warming up hypothermic lamb, excuse me. And the other thing it does is it kind of cuts that colostrum some, gets that colostrum thinned out a little bit, so it makes it easier to slide down the tube. The next thing we're gonna do, we do 2 things. We give 2 shots. The shots that we give vitamin B complex. We give about 3 mils to every ewe right when they lamb. We think this helps them stay on feed. There we go. Here's the penicillin as well. We think that helps them stay on feed to give them this vitamin B complex. So we do that to all of them as soon as they're born. Kind of gives them an appetite boost too, so they don't go off feed when they're in the jugs for you, when you need them to milk the most right at first to get them lambs a good start. The other thing we do is give regular old penicillin. We give that to the ewe, and you'll also see we give it to the baby lamb as well. We're giving about 10 cc's to the ewe and 1 cc per baby lamb. We give it to the ewe because we just had, for almost always, we've had our hand in there, kind of made a mess of things, kind of dirtied things up. We do that to try to make sure that ewe doesn't get an infection afterwards and that she stays on feed for you. We also use a new needle every time we do this. We're using an 18x1 gauge for this penicillin because it's thicker. We'll also give the lamb 1 cc of penicillin. We're giving 1 cc of penicillin kind of as a prevention for any infection it can get through its navel. We'll also dip the navel when we're done with this, but we also like to just be extra precautious and give that penicillin. Since we've started doing that, we haven't had any issues with joint ill that comes out of a tail infection. I mean, excuse me. We haven't had any issues with any joint ill or navel ill when we're using that penicillin. There's a lot of different kinds of tubes. I think this is probably the one they're selling these days that most people recommend. It's a softer tube. It's probably easier for a beginner maybe to slide down. What I actually prefer is the old tubes that I'm still stocking up on, hoarding on from my younger days, because this is what I was trained on. One thing we do to help with this tube is I'll run some hot water down through it to kind of make it go down smoother. And then a lot of times I'll take that tube, put it in my back pocket. That way it's right up against my butters. It helps keep it warm, and it helps keep that tube warm, so when it slides down a lot easier. So we got our stuff to tube the lamb, we got our syringe, we got our tube, and we got our shots we're gonna give the ewe. Like I said, we're gonna give 120 cc's. What I'm gonna do today, there's 2 different forms of tubing. I'm gonna show you both of them on this same lamb. So you wanna hold that lamb in a normal type position. I'll sit him right here. This is the easiest way for me. I'll sit down, put them between my lap. I'll hold their mouth like this. I'll put my 1 finger in their mouth. Fill those up for me, bud. Come over here. I'll take this tube. I'll put my finger in their mouth. Excuse me, got a lot of things going on here. I'll put my finger in the mouth. I'll take that tube. For me, it's kind of the right side, the one I feel the most comfortable with. We'll slowly slide the tube into the throat. If you look, you can see the tube going right down the esophagus. When the tube gets inserted the whole way, you'll kind of feel it where it stops right there and it can't go any further because it's in the back of the stomach. Pull back just a fraction, and then I'll listen. And you can hear the gargling of the belly. to know that you're in the right spot. So that tube's in there, the lamb's chewing on it. Usually the chewing on it's a great sign that you're where you need to be. I'm gonna show the two different methods. The method we use, because we tube so many we feel the most comfortable with, and it's the fastest and most efficient, is where you just use the syringe and push it in plunger style, as opposed to gravity flow, which we will show next. And we just go real slow. Okay, so there, we inserted 60 cc's directly into the belly of this lamb. You listen, you can still hear the gargling in its stomach. The other method for tubing that I believe is more standard, but it's not how we've done things, so I'm gonna show both. This may be better for people who aren't as comfortable with it because it will gravity flow into their belly and you might be able to feel more comfortable that you are where you need to be. I think either way works fine, but I'm gonna show both. The way you do this is you insert the tube and you dump the milk in, and then you let it gravity flow into their belly. To me, this takes just a little more time, and a lot of times we're lambing so many ewes at once, and I actually think this is harder. Sometimes it almost requires a second person, because if they're thrashing around, there's just more things to have to hold on to. I find that I have more control when I just use the syringe and kind of use it with the plunger and insert it in at a slow pace. So what we're doing here is we're just holding this tube, we're letting this milk gravity flow. As you can see, a great sign, that lamb is nibbling and chewing the whole way down because he's getting that milk. He likes what we're doing. This isn't hurting her at all. It's a very easy process once it's learned, and it helps get all the lambs a good start. Anybody who knows me knows that I have no patience whatsoever. Just ask my wife, she'll tell you. Hence why I don't use the gravity flow method, because I have no patience and I don't want to wait around. So the other reason that we're tubing all these lambs as soon as they're born, all the antibiotics that these lambs need are in this colostrum. So we want to get that first colostrum into them as soon as possible. What we'll do then is we'll come back 4 hours after every lamb's born. We'll recheck on those lambs, make sure that they're getting all the necessary, make sure that they've got up and nursed in that first 4 hours. If they haven't, at that point in time, we'll try to teach them how to nurse, or we'll go and tube them again if they don't want to nurse by themselves yet. So then, the next trick that I find to be very important, there's two ways to do it. I want to pull that tube out, but there's a lot of trapped colostrum still laying in that tube. So there's two ways to do it. One, you either crimp the tube and pull it out, or the method that I prefer is if you stick that syringe on there that has that plunger inserted in it and has suction on it, you can slowly pull the tube out and see all the milk is trapped in there. Once you release that syringe, you can see all the milk runs out of the bottom. We don't want to pull it out without having that end crimped off or having that syringe stuck in there, because that milk will run down in the back of its throat and its trachea and could get in its lungs and could cause you more problems than good. So there we go. We've successfully tubed this lamb. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to give the ewe her shots and the lamb her shots as well. Like I said, we're giving 1 cc of penicillin to all these babies. We're giving it subcutaneously right behind the shoulder here, just like that. Just give 1 cc. We're giving it right under the skin, rub it in a little bit, and then we'll go to the ewe. A lot of times they don't get too worked up about this because they're so good at being a mother right now. We'll give that 10 cc's. We'll also give the vitamin B. We give the vitamin B in the muscle, right in the neck muscle there. So that ewe's had vitamin B. She's had penicillin. And then we will dip this newborn lamb's navel. Another trick to these graft lambs too I'll go, even though this lamb's really old, and I'll dip his navel as well, just so that lamb smells and looks and has all the same characteristics as the one that we just grafted onto her. At this point in time, we'll just let her be a mother. There's only one more thing that I do. I'm probably the only crazy person in the country that does it. But what I do next is I give this ewe a warm bucket of water. We're fortunate enough here that we have warm water in this barn where we lamb, where it's warm here. I'll give her a warm bucket of water immediately. It's an old dairy trick that I learned when we were milking cows. I think they'll clean a lot faster on that warm water. They also really seem to like that warm water after the stress of lambing. A lot of times we'll put a warm bucket in there and they'll immediately drink 3 gallons right after lambing. We like to make sure they have really, really fresh, clean water. Like you'll hear me say on almost all my videos, one of our biggest BCL mottos is, if the water's not clean enough that you drink it, why should you make the sheep? So we'll make sure she has real clean, fresh water. And we'll come back and check on this thing in 4 hours, see if that lamb's up nursing, check her bag, and we'll also check to see if she's cleaned and try to find her after birth as well.